Alright, I've been putting this episode off for far too long, over a year, but I'm finally going to talk about it. Welcome to Be Unapologetically You. This is my podcast where I kind of just talk about everything. I have attempted to do podcasts quite a few times now, and every time I've niched down, I've always found that I've not kept to it. And the reason that I've not kept to it is I've realised that life is full of so many things, regardless of whether you want to be a huge business person, a professional bodybuilder, just a good person and have a great career, or, I don't know, a good friend. Life is the entirety of it, and how you are as a person and go forward with that is so fundamental to everything. And I found that once I embraced the fact of me as an entirety of a person, I was able to do more with my life. And yes, for me that's more business based, but I wanted to bring like some authenticity to, I don't know, the world and kind of how I'm thinking and feeling and what's going on. And I didn't really want to make a podcast that was based on one thing. And that's why I open up the doors and allow people to ask me questions about anything, really. And that's why I've put this episode off for so long, because I was kind of waiting for someone to ask me about it. And the reason I wanted someone to ask me about it is because I wasn't confident of talking about it otherwise. So I competed in bodybuilding over a year ago now, in July 2023, and it was incredible. But there's a lot of reasons why I haven't spoken about it. It's a lot of reasons where I tell people that I've competed before, but I sometimes don't really go into the depths of it very much. And to be totally honest, I think it's because the entire experience overwhelmed me a lot more than I thought it would. Prep I didn't find as hard as I see other people explain it. For me, I am very, what's the best way to say it? I am very to-do list. I am a to-do list. So for me, when it was train, 20 minutes of cardio, go to work, photo shoot, hour of cardio, bed, that was quite easy for me. It was until about 5 weeks out, I think it was manageable. I was able to manage all my business stuff on the side of it as well, which was fantastic, obviously. And it was only really towards the end, and I think it was the fatigue was very high, so my working hours became very short because I would get overwhelmed and tired very quickly. I'd still tick all the boxes and everything, but it was bloody hard work. I've never heard anyone say that prep was like super easy, but for me it made my brain happy. Having just my whole life scheduled out for me, it was brilliant, because as long as I ticked the boxes, everything was okay. So the first thing that I really wanted to talk about really was reversing out of a show. I reversed terribly. I binged a lot afterwards. I made myself quite sick quite a few times. I kind of escaped to Wales to just get away, and that was to get away from everything. I think my entire life, that year especially to that point, had been so consumed with bodybuilding, and my businesses were starting to do really well at this point, that I just wanted everything to shut off. So I did. I went to Wales. I ate a lot. I still exercise, I was so ingrained with a routine that was the easy part to do, but I really fucked over my metabolism. I really screwed myself in that sense. I mean, the general feeling of like lactic acid in my legs was painful. I was in pain for days because of just suddenly overloading my body with all this terrible food. So not the best idea in the world, and I don't really suggest it to anyone. So if you do a significant cut, listen to your coach, basically, listen to your coach and do what he says or she says, because I really don't want to go through that again. At the time, I was just so focused on eating. That's all I wanted to do. I just didn't want to talk to anyone and eat. That's all I wanted to do, and I did. But I think I'll go into the depths of that in another video. I think that's a lot more like mental side of it, that we can dive into another day. The person that asked me about doing this episode purely asked me about the show, so I will answer that first, I guess. I think one of the hardest parts of prep for me was actually letting control go, being able to put my body in someone else's hands, to mold into what everyone saw on stage. And Warren did a fantastic job. I was his first athlete to go to stage. It was a big moment for the both of us, and I made that decision and a year beforehand, I think. And it was after seeing him compete, and I was like, I want to do it, and I want you to take me there. And at the beginning he was like, okay, I've never done this before, this is really out of my comfort zone. And I was like, well, I trust you to do it, and I want to get on stage after a huge injury, and I'm not looking to win anything, I just want to be able to do it. And we both took the leap together, and that is my favourite thing out of all of it, is that I got to do it with a really close friend of mine. I got to see him flourish in his business and his knowledge and learn from that. I feel more sorry for him because I think I was a bit of a nightmare client, in the sense of when things weren't going okay, he wouldn't know about it. I did that a lot. I did that more than I'd like to admit, to be honest. And now with John, my new coach, I can't do that. I've had to learn to just admit it. If I've had a bad day, or I ate the wrong food, or in my case, if I didn't eat enough food, I've just had to admit it and just get on with it, because otherwise we don't grow, we don't progress, we don't move anywhere. You have to be super honest in this sport, and I think that's a misconception that a lot of people get, is that it's just it's just prep season and it's just shredding weight and then stepping on stage in a sparkly bikini. It's really not. It's not anywhere near that. It's your entire life gets consumed by it. Like, even now, it's hard for me to just go out for a meal or to eat certain foods, or if someone wants to cook me dinner or anything like that. I have a limitation on what I can have. And yeah, people are probably like, well, that's a bit silly because you're not really living. I am. I promise you I am. It's just I can't live. There's inverted commas there if you're not watching on YouTube. I just live differently. And I'm a lot more active with my living, so I'm very fortunate that the majority of people in my life are also the same. So going for a walk and a coffee is really good instead of going for dinner, and you just change your lifestyle around it, really. Anyway, I'm diverting from the show because obviously that's how much I don't want to talk about it. The show was something different. There was a big lead up to the show, and I think the biggest thing for me was having family there. I've not really had that a lot in my life, and that's not a bad thing, I would say. My dad watched me play football for the majority of my younger years and stuff, but my mum hadn't really got involved in any of the sports that I've done before, and she wanted to come to this one, and I didn't react the best to it, and my best friend Jess can vouch for that. I got very overwhelmed. I think I was like 9 weeks out from the show at this point, and I was just quite shook by the fact that my mum wanted to come. And then also I felt like I needed to do much better because my mum was going to be there, and all I want her to feel is proud. And so I had this really intense, overwhelmed feeling when I was telling my best friend that my mum wanted to come, and I was just like, I can't deal with this right now, so on the show day I just need you to look after her because I won't be able to deal with this. And it was true, I couldn't. For the majority of the day I couldn't, and we cried, and there's a moment from that day that I won't publicly put on air, essentially, but it was a very, very touching moment between me and my mum, and I love that. I love that I have that, that because she didn't watch any of my sports, so this was a big one for me, because to be honest, all I wanted was my parents to be proud of me, and that's pretty cool that they are. I've never doubted it, but it's different when they physically get to see something. And also my family hasn't really met anyone from down south. They don't live around here. Obviously I'm originally from the northwest anyway. So I've spent the majority of my adult life living in a place that they don't know. So, my mum and my auntie got to meet Jess and Warren and Emily, who I was competing with as well. And that meant a lot to me. They got to see my life. They got to see what I built. And that was also the whole day. I can't explain it well. And I think that's why I've not been able to talk about it before. But the overwhelming feeling that I had was just unmanageable. I felt so mentally unstable on that day. Like I went and I felt good when I was on stage and it was amazing and all this kind of stuff, but everything around it was really difficult for me. Like even post show, we went over to Emily's for pizza, and I ate pizza and I started to feel really sick, and I just needed to go. And I'd only been there for like half an hour, 45 minutes. I just needed to go. There was too many people. And it's quite ironic because then I messaged my friend Izzy and was like, do you want to just go for a walk? I was like, I need to go walk. And it was great because then I got to just walk with her and just chat like about stuff about the show. She'd come to see the show as well, and I'm really grateful for that because she also did a few of the hard cardio sessions with me. So, you know, I appreciate her friendship hugely. And yeah, just like it was, I think it took me a long time to not feel as overwhelmed as I did on that day. But I mean, I lost like 20 kilos in that prep. I was small. Like I didn't think I could get that small in the sense of like toned. I've lost weight before and everything, but it was a different feeling when, I guess it's done correctly, not incorrectly. I've done it incorrectly before, and that's a blur, that section of my life. But like this was done manageable, you know? I wore lashes for the first time. I had my nails done for the first time. Someone did my hair. You know, obviously fake tanning, that's a whole other thing, by the way. If you ever get fake tanned for a show, it's an experience. I'm so glad that I'm blind because I just did this and took my glasses off and just didn't look around me. Post show as well, you know, like we talked about going into more shows, and decided not to because I hadn't got enough tissue on. The main points from the judges was, you know, like good frame but needs to be bigger sort of thing, so decided to take time out. I did then move from Warren to John in November of 2023, and I think it's not Warren's fault and I love him to pieces, but like I just didn't hold myself accountable, and I can't expect him to hold me accountable to my own actions, and I just didn't listen. Post show from like July to November, I didn't follow anything. I didn't follow the food. I hardly followed the training. I did kind of like the bare minimum. And then it got to a point where I did have an honest conversation with John, and I was just like, I'm just wasting his time. I was like, because he's too far away. He can't hold me accountable. He's in Manchester and I'm in London. And yeah, so decisions were made. Anyway, again, diverted from the show. Obviously I do plan to compete again, so it couldn't have been that bad, because I guess at some points of this podcast I'm making it sound like it was terrible. It wasn't terrible. I really did love the show and stuff, but I just wasn't expecting to feel the way that I felt. There's been a lot of development in my life in general over the last 4 to 5 years, and a lot of that came out during prep and during the show, and having to communicate better and be more open and be more vulnerable. And I think these are the things that people either don't do or try not to do. And that's one thing I'm really grateful that I had Emily, because she was going through the exact same thing as me. So whenever I was just having a bad day, it was so much easier to just go to someone who's going through the same experience and just be like, dude, this is shit. And she'd be like, yeah, this is shit. Do you need to go and do steps? And I'm like, yeah, I need to go do steps. And she's like, do you want to go walk around Fleet Pond or whatever? It wasn't Fleet Pond, it's in Farnborough. And just like, and that's what we do. We just kind of like, you could have those moments where you did that. It is a day I hope I never forget, because even though it was overwhelming and it was hard and it was mentally quite stressful for me, and the reverse was horrendous, I wouldn't want to forget it ever. It was cool. Like, and it was cool to be able to put myself in that position. And the second I walked on stage and I started posing, and obviously there was a lot of people there for, like, Emily, and also me, but, like, mainly for Emily, other Emily. And I really appreciated every single person who was there, because it was nice to have people there who had watched me go through the whole thing. Because it's one thing that I talk with, I talk with my best friend Jess. It's just like, she was so proud of me, and that that at the time made me super emotional, because she's seen all of it. Like, she's seen the whole thing. She met me not too long after I ruptured my Achilles, and she's been through the whole thing. She saw me down spiral, she saw me go into debt, she saw me get out of debt, even though she had no idea it was happening the entire time. She stood in an empty gym with me on Saturday evenings after her shift, and we just talk about the world and listen to Justin Bieber and just be human. And it was insane for me, because I'd always felt like I hadn't been able to do that, but that's my own fault, really. I decided to close myself off from the world. No one else did. And she got to see the whole thing, and then to have her there clapping with like loads of other people of me doing something, it was insane. It was really cool. I can't thank those people enough. I could sit here for 20 hours and try to, but it'll never be enough. And sometimes that's the way that things happen. You go through life, and there's people who change your life, and you're never going to be able to make it up to them. And I think the beautiful thing is that you never have to. It's not a give and take. When you find people like that, you find out that life isn't a give and take, and it's just, you are there for them when they need you, and they are there for when you need them, and everything in between. And I think that's why I've not really been able to talk about the show, because it was an accumulation of the last 4 years of my life for 20-30 minutes on stage. And all of that, all of those feelings, those thoughts, and everything, it all drives into that one thing. And then where people are just like, yay, you did it, 20 weeks, amazing. It's not. It's, the day I got told that I should be lucky to be walking, to stepping on stage in heels, a sparkly bikini, in the fittest shape of my life. That was 4 years. I dedicated my life to it, to do that one thing. I mean, I never knew at the beginning that it was going to be bodybuilding, but I did something that was 100% me, and just authentically standing on that stage. And I think after the show, there was one thing that I did put on my story that I was really proud of, and it was something on the lines of eating disorder, did it, ruptured my Achilles, did it, went into debt, did it, mentally broken down, did it, still stepped on stage. And I think that was where I think that's why afterwards my whole body was just too overwhelmed with the situation, so it just kind of shut down. And it took me a long time to get that back, and that's fine, because I'm human and I'm allowed. And just because for that moment I crumbled doesn't mean that the whole process crumbled. And I know next time how to deal with it better. Everything's a learning day. I'm sorry if I repeated myself a lot, but then I did say this episode was something that I was a bit nervous about talking about, I'm not gonna lie, and I'm happy to talk about it a little bit more now, but it is hard because I'm not just talking about a show. I'm talking about everything around the show. So I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. If you've ever been in one of those situations before where you just feel a little bit out of your body, you're okay. There was a quote that I heard recently that said, what advice would you give to someone going through a hard time? And it says, just go right through it. And I totally agree with that. Like, go right through it and sit with it and learn from it and grow from it and take it apart and put it back together, and don't hide it, you know? Don't just run away from it, because it will always be there. So yeah, have a beautiful day wherever you are, whatever you're doing. Thank you for your time and your attention. I appreciate the absolute socks off you, and I'll catch you in the next one.